Violating probation or parole? Stay free. Learn how now.
Probation and parole, two terms that get thrown around a lot, but do you really know the difference? If you or someone you know is dealing with the criminal justice system, understanding these two legal concepts is crucial. In this video, we're breaking it all down for you. We'll cover what probation and parole actually mean, the legal rules behind them, what happens if you violate them, and most importantly, how to protect yourself if you're facing a probation or parole issue. Stick around until the end because this information could make all the difference when it comes to your freedom. Let's get started.
Have you ever wondered what the difference is between probation and parole? It's a common question, especially if you've been involved in the criminal justice system or know someone who has. Let's start with probation. Probation is a type of supervision that allows a person to avoid serving jail or prison time, or to serve part of their sentence outside of custody. Probation is not considered punishment or a criminal judgment, but rather a rehabilitative measure. Basically, it's an alternative to jail. Instead of spending time in jail or prison, a person on probation is allowed to stay in the community, under specific conditions, of course. Those conditions can be strict and vary depending on the crime. Common probation conditions include reporting to a probation officer, taking drug tests, attending counseling, maintaining a job, and staying within curfew hours. There might also be prohibitions on weapons, as well as random searches of your property, vehicle, or person. If you fail to meet these conditions, or if you commit another offense while on probation, you could be sent to jail to serve the remaining time on your original sentence.
For example, let's say you were convicted of a first-time DUI. In California, the maximum penalty for a first DUI offense is 6 months in county jail. However, instead of serving that time in jail, you could be placed on probation. If you've already served 1 night in custody, you'll get credit for that, and you're left with 179 days that you didn't serve. If you violate your probation, you could then be sentenced to the remaining time in jail. It's important to remember that probation isn't forever. If you comply with the conditions, it can end early, or you may be allowed to serve out your sentence without returning to jail. However, if you violate the conditions, you risk facing additional jail time.
Now let's move on to parole. Parole is a bit different. It's for people who have been convicted of felony crimes and served time in state prison. Parole occurs after a person has already served a portion of their sentence in prison, and it's a form of supervised release. When an inmate is released on parole, they are assigned to a parole officer, and they must follow a series of conditions for the rest of their parole period. These conditions are typically more restrictive than probation conditions. A parolee is subject to things like random drug testing, searches of their person, vehicle, and home, and strict reporting to a parole officer. A parolee might also face restrictions on the places they can visit, and they may not be allowed to possess certain items or leave their county of residence without permission. If they violate any of these conditions, their parole can be revoked, and they'll have to serve the remaining time in custody. The primary goals of parole are supposed to be to help individuals reintegrate into society, end criminal careers through rehabilitation, and help parolees become self-supporting, but being on parole and avoiding violations can be an arduous task. The main difference between probation and parole is the timing and supervision. Probation is typically given instead of jail time or following a release from jail, and typically lasts between 1 to 5 years depending on the crime. For people on probation, it can be informal or formal. Informal probation doesn't require regular check-ins with a probation officer, but formal probation does. On the other hand, parole is after someone has served time in state prison, and it can last for several years or even for life, depending on the crime. Another key distinction is the level of supervision. Informal probation usually doesn't require regular meetings with a probation officer, but you still have to comply with certain conditions. Formal probation and parole, however, both require regular check-ins with a supervising officer. The level of accountability is much higher with parole, as parolees are often under a stricter level of supervision compared to someone on probation. Whether you're on probation or parole, compliance is critical. The consequences of violating the terms can be severe, either additional jail time or even a return to prison. That's why it's important to fully understand the conditions you're being asked to comply with and take them seriously. For probation, common violations often include failing to complete required programs or community service, failing drug tests, missing check-ins with a probation officer, committing a new crime. For parole, common violations may include leaving a restricted area without permission, associating with known criminals, possessing firearms or illegal substances, failing to report to a parole officer. Now, if you're accused of a violation, all hope is not lost. If you're facing an alleged violation, you need a strong legal defense to try to avoid the imposition of a maximum incarceration period. And that's where we come in. We've helped countless clients defend against probation and parole violations. We know the system, we know the defenses, and we know how to protect your rights. If you're on probation or parole and you're wondering about the relief available to you, whether it's for early termination of probation or other ways to modify your supervision, don't hesitate to reach out for a consultation. There are ways to help navigate these systems and ensure you're getting the best possible outcome for your case. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our legal insights. Have a question? Drop it in the comments below and we'll do our best to answer. Thanks for watching, and remember, when your freedom is on the line, having the right defense makes all the difference. See you in the next video.
Don't forget to like and share this video, and for more legal insights, keep watching and subscribe to our channel.